Praise the Lord Jesus Christ. Now that is the exact welcoming phrase Pastor Elvis uses to invite his congregation into the Word, and honestly, it sets the absolute perfect stage for our explainer today.
Okay, so let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to be breaking down Pastor Elvis's truly fascinating sermon about the 7 specific virtues that hold the absolute highest value in God's eyes. We're going to look at what the source material describes as a hierarchy of spiritual wealth. Basically, the beautiful things that really capture divine attention.
Section 1. In God's Sight, Human versus Divine Focus.
So right off the bat, the source material draws this incredibly sharp contrast between human and divine priorities. Think about it. We as humans are just naturally captivated by physical aesthetics, right? Someone's height, their hair, or even just looking at the breathtaking colors of birds and the intricate shapes of fish. But Pastor Elvis points out that God is looking for something else entirely. He is searching for a hidden spiritual wealth within us. He's looking at the unseen architecture of our character, not just the surface level stuff.
And let me tell you, this isn't just some casual observation. It is a critical mission. The pastor actually grounds this urgency in the book of Revelation, warning us that these inner virtues are deeply, deeply precious. They literally must be actively guarded. He explains it like this. Just as we lock our physical gold in a heavy metal safe, we have to protect our spiritual beauty from being stolen, corrupted, or even just deceived by worldly distractions. It's that important.
Section 2. Wisdom and Knowledge, Intellectual Assets.
Moving into the first tier of our spiritual hierarchy, we look at the intellectual assets. This is where spiritual wealth really begins. Drawing from Proverbs 16:16, the sermon compares wisdom directly to pure gold, framing it as the ultimate currency for navigating life successfully. While the world is out there obsessively chasing literal gold, divine wisdom, the ability to discern, to make righteous choices, to live justly, is infinitely more valuable. Because honestly, without wisdom, even the greatest physical treasures are completely useless.
And that brilliantly builds into our second virtue, true knowledge. Proverbs 20:15 describes knowledge as more valuable than uncountable rubies. Now, in the context of this sermon, we're not just talking about accumulating random trivia facts. True knowledge is defined here as a deep, profound understanding of God and the world around us. It's that experiential knowledge of knowing exactly how God operates, knowing His Word, and having the sheer clarity to walk the right path without, stumbling around in the dark.
Section 3. The Gift of Life, Existential Assets.
Let's move on to the existential asset in this hierarchy, the sheer incredibly precious gift of life itself. Pastor Elvis uses this really beautiful imagery from the book of Luke to show that God is the ultimate provider for all living creatures. Whether it's a tiny little ant on the ground or a raven soaring up in the sky, God ensures they are fed and cared for, and they don't even have to build storehouses.
So the crucial point we really need to grasp is this. If God so meticulously cares for the animals, human life is exceptionally precious in His sight. Our lives are absolutely not accidents. The sermon notes that simply being alive is an incredible privilege, mostly because it's only in life that we can actually serve others, bless our communities, and fulfill a divine purpose. The pastor even references how figures like David prayed for their lives to be spared, and it wasn't out of selfishness. It was so they could continue to shepherd and help other people.
Citing Matthew 16:26, the source contrasts the totally pointless pursuit of global wealth against the absolutely devastating loss of one's soul. I mean, think about it. What good is it to own the entire world if you lose the very life and breath that makes you who you are? The sermon strongly urges us to protect our lives and our souls at all costs, recognizing life itself as a uniquely beautiful asset in God's eyes.
Section 4. Character and Fear, Social Assets. Progressing even further down the hierarchy to our social assets, Pastor Elvis uses Ecclesiastes 7:1 to explain something fascinating. Just as a fine, complex perfume is meticulously crafted from all these various ingredients to emit a beautiful, lasting fragrance, a good reputation is a highly prized spiritual asset. A good name precedes you. The sermon recounts the story of the Apostle Paul. He initially had a terrible reputation as a persecutor, right? But once his character was transformed, that new good name allowed him to build immense trust and spread his message. Basically, your character is your spiritual fragrance.
Now, this part is super interesting.
Pastor Elvis completely redefines the fear of God here, totally stripping away all those worldly superstitions we might have grown up with. He says it is not about being afraid of ghosts or getting anxious walking past a crossroad or fearing a random lemon left out on the street. Instead, it's framed strictly as a pure, holy reverence. It literally means having such a deep, profound respect for God that it guides your every single action, keeping you from wronging other people or just speaking carelessly.
Section 5. Tested faith. Internal assets.
As we enter the deepest internal assets, referencing 1 Peter 1:7, the sermon highlights that faith which actually survives hardships, loss, and trials is infinitely more valuable to God than gold that just perishes in the fire. Let's be real. Anybody can have faith when things are going perfectly, right? But the sermon points out that when someone is pushed to their absolute limits, facing deep sorrow or massive loss, and they still choose to trust God, wow, that tested, fire-refined faith is an incredibly beautiful thing in God's sight. It's the ultimate proof of spiritual resilience.
Section 6. Humility, the ultimate capstone.
Finally, we reach the seventh and absolute most internal virtue in God's sight. Rooted in 1 Peter 3:4, genuine humility is what God considers a truly unfading beauty. The pastor explains that this means remaining grounded, gentle, and approachable no matter what your status is. Whether you've achieved massive worldly success or hold great power, choosing to just take the lower seat and speaking with a gentle, quiet spirit, that is a deeply, deeply attractive quality to the divine. It never fades, which is totally unlike physical beauty.
Seeing this complete hierarchy mapped out like a giant puzzle, we can finally understand exactly how Pastor Elvis structures the beautiful things God desires to find within our character. We move from the intellectual, seeking wisdom and true knowledge, to the existential, truly valuing the gift of life, down to the social, maintaining a good name and holy reverence, all the way into the deeply internal, possessing a tested faith and an unfading humility. Based on the pastor's closing prayer, we want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to reflect upon today. We spend so much of our time and energy cultivating our outward appearance and chasing physical wealth. But if your heart were tested today, which of these 7 precious, spiritually beautiful things would God actually find? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and hey, keep cultivating that inner wealth.